Hola, hola todas y todos. Bienvenidos a Barcelona y a 4 years from now, 2022. My name is David McClelland. I'm a technology journalist, broadcaster, 8-time 4 years from now veteran, I realize today. And I'm delighted to be host here on the Agora stage, where we have a lot to look forward to today. We're going to be taking a deep peep into the metaverse, learning a lot more about this very exciting platform for the future and what that may or may not mean. We're going to be examining decentralized societies. You may have heard of DAOs or DAOs, a lot of conversation around those later on and what they may mean, what they may offer to us. We're going to be learning about the future of education and exploring quantum technologies as part of our Frontier Tech program later on today. Much, much more than that besides. But our first session today, as you'll see, is a reminder that technology is not yet as inclusive or as accessible as it might be. We talk a lot about a digital divide, and as we'll learn now, that divide is indeed very, very real. So for our opening session today, please join me in welcoming to the stage hello. Oh, well, hi, nice to meet you. I did not realize you were going to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. So one more time, for our opening session today, which is reaching underserved population segments, please join me in welcoming to the stage the head of mobile development for the GSMA. It's Max Cuveye. Max.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's great. It's day 2 of Mobile World Congress 2022. We're very excited to be here. Can you imagine living without your phone? I don't think we can, especially the last 2 years we've lived. But this is exactly what we're going to be talking about this morning. We're going to be talking about the billions of people, and here I'm saying billions, not millions, of people who are not today fully digitally connected. We're talking about, we know exactly what they're missing. We know they're missing access to information, they're missing on business opportunity, they're missing on telemedicine, and really, we're going to be looking at what we can do to bring those billions of people who are not yet connected online. So today we're not just going to be talking about who they are, and unfortunately those who are digitally not connected today are also the people who tend to be excluded from the actual physical world. So there will be women, there will be persons with disabilities, persons in rural areas. What we're also going to be talking about, and that's the exciting part today, is about the innovation that donors, mobile operators, startups are working on together to really bring inclusion to the billions who are not yet connected today. So as we start today, I would like to welcome David Woolnough. David Woolnough is the Deputy Director of Research, Tech and Innovation of the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. David and his team, with us and with a lot of other partners, has been working a lot on digital inclusion in the past decade, and he's kindly agreed to kind of tell us more about what they've been doing and setting the scene today. Thank you very much. Welcome, David.
Okay, good morning, and thank you, Max, for the introduction. It's very good to be here. So I've got 7 minutes to talk about the importance of digital inclusion, why it can be so challenging, and what we are doing to help tackle it. So we have been working with GSMA for probably almost a decade now, and together we've kind of shown that mobile technology can be a cost-effective channel to deliver a wide range of services at scale that provide real benefits to the world's most vulnerable communities. So we've all seen the impact that COVID-19 pandemic has had, and that's just the accelerated to global digital transformation. And it's just highlighted to all of us the importance of having access to the internet. And we know that mobile internet connectivity delivers significant benefits, and it transforms lives. So that you kind of know, and coming here, every one of us knows that. But actually, according to GSMA 2021 State of Mobile Internet Connectivity Report, there's still globally more than 3.7 billion people who don't have access, and a usage gap of 3.5 billion people living within the footprint of mobile broadband and not using the internet services. So that is a huge gap. So Max mentioned that we'd look at who they are, and I think the unconnected are, very simply, disproportionately poorer, less educated, mainly female, people with disabilities, and rural. So just to give you 3 stats, so 234 million people, fewer women than men, use mobile internet. That's in low and middle income countries. In places like Kenya or Bangladesh, people with disabilities are 85% less likely to use mobile internet. And rural populations are disproportionately unconnected. So for example, in Nigeria, 63% of those living in rural areas are unconnected compared to just 40% in the urban spaces. So I think the critical question is, why are people unconnected? So each of these unconnected or underserved segments face unique challenges, and it's worth digging into each and every one of them rather than generalizing. But almost our research has shown that there are sort of several barriers that are consistent across all. So I'm going to name just 5 of those. So one is knowledge and skills. So people lack awareness and understanding of mobile internet and its benefits. Secondly, affordability, which is not a big surprise. People just physically cannot afford devices, data plans, or other service fees. Thirdly, as relevance, is the content relevant? Services, products, are they ones that meet users' real needs? Then safety and security. A lot of people are really genuinely concerned about the negative aspects, about harmful content, harassment, fraud, online security. And then finally, just sheer access. So beyond access to the networks, do people have access to the enablers, like electricity, formal IDs, services, devices and services that are sufficiently accessible? So actually all of these can be big dissuaders from people for actually connecting up, and they're all fixable. So what are we doing? So in FCDO's Research and Innovation Division, which is the bit that's kind of led our partnership with the GSMA for the last decade, we've supported a whole range of inclusive, responsible and sustainable digital transformations. And in doing that, we work really closely with partner governments, with the private sector, with civil society, to look at that conducive business environment. And together with local and international players, and by supporting the development of inclusive and scalable technologies and business models, we aim to at least make a dent on this global digital divide. We're facilitating more affordable last-mile connectivity, more widespread digital skills, and accessible, locally relevant digital content and services. So that's all general terms, but in practice, what does that actually mean? I'm delighted to have my colleague next to me from DevTalk, who's also UK supported, started through GSMA's Assistive Tech Innovation Fund, and also doing the same on the main stage. Actually, it's great to see them signing, so thank you very much. So DevTalk just represents one of hundreds of these startups that UKAID has supported over the years through a cluster of tech and innovation-focused programs. So I think in total, we were just totting it up, it's about 250 technologies, innovation and business models, reaching over 70 million people around the world. So 2 or 3 other examples. Kasha in Rwanda and Kenya is an e-commerce health and self-care platform for women. And it's become one of Africa's leading femtech organizations and raised commercial funding. Maya in Bangladesh, digital healthcare platform that has reached millions of citizens with doctor-issued advice. And 70% of Maya's customers are women. And actually over 50 of these startups have gone on to raise more than £500 million of follow-on capital. So success stories like Twiga Foods in Kenya, with a mobile-based B2B platform that supplies fresh fruit and vegetables. Ranguru in Indonesia, an Indonesian edtech firm. Again, both of these were supported through the GSMA funds, and that helps prepare students for exams. So actually, these are the sort of startups that we've been able to spark that are really targeting this part of the population to spread the internet inclusion. And we have to do this working with other donors, with NGOs, with corporates, so DFAT, CEDA, Unilever, Microsoft, Transform. It's drawing in, as well as the extra funding that we can get from the private sector to support these industries, it's looking at the expertise and access to influential networks that make such a difference. So I'm just going to wrap up with saying there's a little bit beyond the startup. So as well as starting up the innovative technologies like DevTalk, actually there's a whole range of work that we're doing with GSMA around digital inclusion. So thinking of things like GSMA's Connected Women Commitments Initiative, the GSMA Innovation Funds, which supports the local innovators whose products and services are essential to closing that mobile gap. Mobile Internet Skills Training Toolkit is making such a difference around training people to use a set of resources, free resources, to teach people the basic skills that they need to access the mobile internet. And I think this content has been used now to train over 21 million people. And finally, GSMA's principles for driving the digital inclusion of persons with disabilities. So ensuring that customers with disabilities have equitable access to all existing products and services, as well as leveraging innovative assistive technologies. So thank you for your time this morning. I look forward with you to the conversations that follows and to learning more from the mobile industry partners who together are working so hard to address these barriers. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, David. That was a great overview. Just a reminder, as David explained, that we've identified 5 key barriers to digital inclusion. The first one is the skills. The second one is the affordability. The third one is the relevant content and services. The fourth one, safety and security. And the fifth one, accessibility. David did it really well, but I want to thank again DevTalk for joining us today and doing the sign language to all the keynotes this year at MWC 2022. And I want to invite on stage my colleague Claire Sipthorpe, who's our head of digital inclusion, and who will be having a very interesting conversation with those people who are deploying those solutions on the ground to help people get online in particular. So Claire, if you can come on the stage, she will then introduce our different panelists. Thank you very much, Claire. If you can come with me. Good. I'm gonna sit you here. So, the chair's here. And the bottle of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah, I was trying to joke.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. So delighted to be here and have a great panel. Let me first start by introducing our panelists. So we have Shakul Sonkar, who's the co-founder of iSTEM. And iSTEM uses technology to enhance access to persons with disability in education and employment through a portal offering accessibility conversion services and digital learning resources. So he's in the middle. And then we have Abdul Kadir, who's in the middle, who's the co-founder of DevTalk, who we've seen throughout this MWC doing all the signing for the keynotes, which is amazing. And then also in the middle we have Izana Razwork, Managing Director of Africa 118, which provides affordable mobile digital starter pack to Ethiopian SMEs. And on my far left, we have Zainab Huzan Siddiqui, who's the Vice President of Sustainability at Telenor Group and works across the footprint in Asia and the Nordics. So great panel. The focus of today is looking at how to reach underserved population segments. So I'm going to start by asking DevTalk, because we've seen you throughout this conference, making sure this conference is inclusive and people deaf people can follow. But can you tell me what do you see as the key challenges where you're working in terms of reaching the underserved? What are the main things you're trying to address? What are the challenges you faced? And what are some of the key learnings that you've come across in terms of your journey?
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk about the challenges that the person with disabilities face. I myself being a person with disability, and I understand what is the pain point for us. And building this platform for the deaf community is the reason behind is that they are considered most marginalized and they are isolated from the society because of the communication gap. Deaf person cannot hear what the other person says, and same goes in the other way. What the other person says, deaf cannot hear. So we understand the point that the population of deaf person across the globe is 466 million, which is a huge population, and they have faced the same challenges over the world because world cannot understand the language. And the reason behind starting is that I belong to Pakistan, and in Pakistan, for blind and for physical disabilities, they are much advanced because they get the best education, they have the job opportunities. But for the deaf, there are very limited access to all the things, and because of that gap, they do not have a better education, they do not have better job opportunities, and people cannot consider them as to be make them accessible for them. So we have developed this platform with the name of DefTalk. We are providing digital sign language interpretation services through our mobile app, which is available on iOS and iOS and Android phones. So we have built this platform to especially for the deaf, that whenever they want to communicate with the general public, either visit to a doctor, either going for the interview, or talk with the general public, they just log into our mobile app, and whatever the deaf person says signs, the interpreter translates into the voice. So other person can understand how they can communicate with the deaf people. So same goes on the other way. What the other person say in voice, the interpreter translate into the signs, so deaf can understand what the other person is saying. So in this way, we are creating the huge impact for the deaf community and also for the sign language interpreter. For the deaf, they have considered to now they are considered to be more inclusive for them, and for the interpreters. They are earning, they have the other source of income while using our platform.
Great. Thank you so much. And what have you as you've sort of done this amazing journey, what are a couple of the main challenges you faced as you've worked in the digital world on this project? Is there anything that that's been a key challenge for you that you've had to overcome?
Yes, there are so many challenges while starting this platform. One is that to make the system inclusive for the deaf community, and the second biggest challenge is there is a lack of sign language interpreter. Not only in Pakistan, this problem is all over the globe. And to find the sign language interpreter and to connect with the deaf people on the daily uses is a big challenge, because there are very limited sign language interpreters. And the third challenge is the awareness, that how we can aware the public that the deaf people have their talent. If you give them the opportunities, they will perform a best of their best. So through our mobile app, we have made the things inclusive for the deaf, and you can see that we have also made the GSMA events inclusive by providing sign language interpretation services. So in this way, we can make the things or the companies inclusive while integrating the sign language interpretation in their every event, in their every conference. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And I certainly hope through MWC we've raised awareness of the challenge and how important it is. So. So I'm now going to move to Africa. So Izana, you're in Ethiopia. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey that you've taken through Africa 118 and some of the challenges that you've faced and how you've addressed them.
Sure, thank you. So at Africa 118, our focus is to help underserved SMEs build an online presence so they can reach new customers and grow their business. So as background, in Ethiopia, less than 10% of small businesses have an online presence. And that would compare, for example, here in Barcelona, where 60-70% of small businesses would be online. And for those of us that are coming here, we know that if we're searching for accommodation services or hotels, we spend a lot of time searching, and most people in Barcelona would have probably figured out that if they have a hotel or a guest house, they should put their inventory online because they make a lot of money doing so. So Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, is also a conference center. A lot of conferences come through, but apart from the big hotels, most guest houses would not have, or most hotels actually are not online. So our focus is how to bridge that gap, and we're doing so with the support of the GSMA Innovation Fund and FCDO with a digital startup pack, which makes it easy for an Ethiopian SME to get a presence on Google and Facebook to help acquire new customers. So I think you're asking me about some of the challenges we faced. We're focusing in on specific groups. So one of them are women-led SMEs. And some of the things that we've learned to be successful in that segment is, number one is we set ourselves targets or quotas. So in Ethiopia, less than 30% of small businesses are owned by women. We set ourselves a goal of having 50% of them that participate in our programs to be women-led. And so it's something that we hold as a target. We hold ourselves accountable every month for that KPI. And it forces us to be innovative in how we go about reaching them. The second thing is, in order to reach these women entrepreneurs, is we partner with strong associations that already have women as members. So the Women's Economic Development Program, the Center for the Advancement of Women in Ethiopia as well. And what we found is if we find the right partner, they've solved for a lot of the issues around how to reach women. So how to be flexible in terms of timing, the scheduling, the format. So rather than us trying to create our own channel, we find associations that are already in place, and then we adapt our program to how they reach their members. And we've also helped that's taken some of the load off, but has also been more effective for us as well. And then the third thing that we've done in terms of reaching out to these women-led SMEs is we lead through knowledge, we lead through training. So we have a digital skills program that we've built in partnership with Google and GSMA. And we find that for a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe digital, being online, connectivity, the words are there, but we have customized training, which means that it's relevant to me as an entrepreneur. How do I do it? What does it mean to me? And so in that context, we found that having trainers that are women resonates in terms of having a trust connection that's there. And we found also that separating or segmenting users by their area of focus has been very helpful. So for example, we work with the Ethiopian Coffee Exporters Association, Women's Exporter Association. So when one of the members is there in the training and she says, I went to Germany, I met an importer, they saw my website, and that really helped to explain what I do. Of course, with the other women that were in the association, it makes a lot of sense. I understand what it means to be online. It helps me reach customers. We had another example where there's a fashion designer in Addis, and we helped her with a starter pack. She was showcasing her collection. The US Embassy reached out, and she went to the US and presented her collection at a US fashion show as well. So, very relevant scenarios where other women that are in that group can see what does it really mean and what is the impact of that. And then the third part is making sure that they have an easy, so sometimes training is training, but then the starter pack that we've developed enables them to take their first step. So I understand what it is, and then here's my first step, and then the trainers that we have helped to make that a reality. So maybe those are some things in terms of challenges we face and how we have gone about trying to tackle them.
Excellent. Excellent points, and really important, as you say, to understand and segment your customer base. Really important. I'm going to turn to you, Shakul. So you also have a strong focus on reaching people with disability in India. So wondering, again, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and what are some of the challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them.
Sure. Thanks so much, Claire. First of all, thanks for having me here. Really nice to be with you guys. Before I go further along, a brief background of us. So we are basically the digital accessibility space, which is to say we work to enhance technologies to make our websites, apps, content accessible for people with print disabilities. It'll be surprising for you to know that more than 97.4% of total 1 million most visited pages are inaccessible for people who are blind or visually impaired. So that sounds like a big problem, and that's where we pitch in. We are using the technology, enhancing it to make these resources accessible for people who are with print disabilities. So when we started iSTEM, we thought, as a blind co-founder, that we understand our community really well because we had our own connections, we knew several communities, but soon we realized that we are far from reality. There are so many intersectionality within the disability community, and many people thought so different than we were thinking about them. For instance, many women were hesitant in their presence online, and several were not doing it deliberately because they were not sure about their privacy on the digital spaces. Similarly, for people with disability falling in low socioeconomic conditions were not a good fan of using assistive technologies apps for their freemium model because anyway they were unable to pay for their fees and they were getting limited access to those freemium models, so they were not really enjoying it. Similarly, there is a huge scarcity when you talk about assistive technology and the localization. So not many solutions are available in Indian regional languages. So those people who are facing difficult or who do not have good confidence with English, they struggle the most to use and access this technology. So once we understood all those challenges, we actually realized that where we were lacking and started defining new personas, new users, and tried to accommodate different types of users. And we completely changed our roadmap and started developing our new strategy through all this research. We understand the need of tapping into network, so we created an ambassador program where we have people who are community leaders in their small community to work with iSTEM as an ambassador, and then they go and talk about our technology, our solutions, our offerings within their community. They become our advocate, and the way we reach out to their community, we get a good access of their community, and it makes our problem easier to reach out to those kind of people. Secondly, we also tapped and created a huge network of nonprofits in India who are working in this space for so long, for decades, and working on ground for people with disabilities to make this problem more vocal in their regional areas. And because when you see an organization which is 10 or 15 years old and they come and talk about this technology company and they advocate about it, you feel more confident and really want to use the solution that we are trying to develop. So just to summarize, for us, the network and the connect played a really key when to reach our population to the marginalized group.
Great, thanks a lot. It sounds like there's similarities between with Africa 118 as well in terms of using community groups and reaching out. It's very interesting. Now I'm going to turn to you, Zainab. So you're with a mobile operator has a very strong focus on reaching underserved. So it'd be great to hear your perspective of what you guys do to reach underserved, what the challenges are you face, and how you address them.
Thank you, Claire. So just to introduce, Telnor Group that I am representing is essentially present in 9 markets across the globe. And we have a customer base of about 180 million. And we, as a company, have a strategic focus. So this is the corporate strategy key pillar of responsible business, which basically means that responsible business is the way that we do our business, and that we believe that if the society does better, so does the business. And I think in over the course of many years, we've shown by serving the underserved masses, by serving specific segments, that serving underserved groups makes good business sense. I think, Claire, from your question, underserved groups essentially have different needs. We've heard that from the rest of the panelists as well. They have specific needs, they have specific challenges that need to be heard. And they need to be heard in those groups' time, space, and without the technical jargon. And really, sort of threading out what those challenges are, what those needs are, and then piecing them together in the value chain of a targeted product or service. And of course, there's several groups of underserved communities that we find in both developing and developed countries. So we've talked about persons with disabilities, of course, women, but then also we see elderly groups as underserved in some of our markets, and also groups of migrants that are present in some of our developed markets. I'll try to answer your question about the challenges and what we've done in 2 examples. The first one comes from Pakistan, where we operate. And in Pakistan, the total population of women is close to about 50% of the 220, 230 odd million population. And what we see is that through the GSMA research, we have noted that women are 49% less likely to use mobile internet than men. And really, what the industry is missing out is on a big segment here when you look at it from a proportion and the size of the population. Telenor Pakistan, they've taken quite a few strides in terms of their commitment to the GSMA and to the globe with regards to connecting women in increasing mobile subscriber base, mobile internet subscriber base when it comes to women. And one particular example is of Khushal Angan, which is essentially an IVR service designed for rural women, designed for their need to have awareness and knowledge content with regards to livelihoods, with regards to household management, livestock management, nutrition, health, digital skills using the GSMA MIST toolkit, and several other aspects. And basically, what the teams had done was that they really sort of listened to the need. They spent time with that particular group, understanding their daily life and the challenges within that. And then really, together with the GSMA and using the support of the GSMA's research work as well as data analytics, came up with the service that actually delivers on that need. It started in about 2017 as a free service. But it went on to sort of now become a paid service with more than 500,000 subscribers, women subscribers. I think what it also addresses, and I just want to say that because women in Pakistan, and the reason for their low sort of mobile use and mobile ownership and mobile use is, of course, a cultural disapproval that comes from the family or the community in terms of owning and using the mobile phone, but also affordability and literacy levels. And this service has sort of addressed all of that. The IVR service is in a woman's voice, so the cultural acceptability is there. And of course, this is a voice service, so you don't necessarily have to read. And of course, it is at a price after a period of time, building trust that we've sort of determined. The last point that I want to make is from our market in Thailand, where we have a population that is about 25% of the population is above the age of 55 years old. And this is a digitally underserved population, and it's a growing population in the Thailand market. And what we see is that this group should be, for social reasons and for economic reasons, citizens who are productive to the society, but they lack the digital skills. Our operation in Thailand, DTAC, they have started what is called Net for Living Diamond Series, which is essentially targeted on small and medium enterprises run by elderly people, looking at reskilling and upskilling them, building their digital skills, and also helping their businesses get online, particularly post-pandemic. So this is not only about including them into the society, it is also about potentially growing your customer base within that particular segment.
Great, thanks. Some great examples there. So, I mean, I think you mentioned that for Telenor, it makes business sense. It's a business push. But I hear certainly in my work sometimes people saying, well, reaching the underserved, it takes a lot of resources. It can be difficult to be scalable and sustainable. So maybe I'll start with you, Izana. How are you working to make yours sort of scalable and sort of commercially sustainable in the approach that you're taking?
So we're a startup, so our resources are limited. In terms of scaling our efforts, what we found has worked. We're very big believers in partnerships. So what we found is that if we can find partners that are like-minded in their focus on SMEs, women entrepreneurs, that's helped. So of course the GSMA Innovation Fund, FCDO, that's been a great partner of ours. in terms of even funding to help with our latest initiative on the starter pack in terms of development. Google is a big partner of ours as well. They have a focus on small businesses. They have more resources than we do, so it's helped us to be more effective in our outreach. So one is strong partnerships where, particularly around areas around skills development, as you mentioned, where there's an interest there. We find that we can help on the implementation side, and we find partners on the investment side. And then maybe going back to the notion of women's organizations or strong SME organizations, it really does take a lot of the cost out of the picture because they've already connected with their members. So just by plugging in, it also reduces what resources are required from us to be able to reach them.
Great. That's thanks. Yes, and I think we've heard a couple times about partnerships, which is great. Yeah. So Abdul, over to you now. So what is DevTalk's strategy in terms of making sure that what you do is sustainable from a commercial perspective?
Yes, again, we also believe into building a partnership with different organizations, and with the help of GSMA Innovation Funds, we have built multiple partnerships. In Pakistan, we have partnered with Jazz and Telenor Pakistan to make their call centers, to make their place inclusive for the deaf community. Just in 4 years of operation, we scaled to 4 different markets, that is Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and now we are just starting our operation in Denmark. And all this achievement and all this happened because we believe in the partnerships, and through partnership we learn from the organization what are their needs and how we can make their all the things inclusive for the deaf community. Now we are scaling to make media channel inclusive for the deaf community, because 90% of deaf people cannot read and write because their native language is sign language. So we are making entertainment channel inclusive for the deaf community. We are making movies, dramas, and all the commercials are in sign language, so deaf can understand what is happening around them. Not only this, we are also building partnership with different universities and hospitals to make the content accessible for the deaf community, because doing the sign language for making the content accessible is much more easy for the deaf to understand what is the new rules and all the things. So in Pakistan, we are trying to build government speech inclusive for the deaf, so that they can understand what is happening around the country, because in Pakistan the population of deaf is 9 million, which is huge population, and they are almost isolated from the society. And through partnerships and through building new relations, we are able to make the things inclusive for the deaf and to make them integrate in the society to play their important role.
Congratulations for expanding into 4 markets. That's very impressive. So Shukul, I'm going to ask you the same question. What is your approach to kind of ensuring that it's sort of scalable and sustainable from your perspective?
So I will mostly echo with both the speakers here, the importance of partnerships. So from our inception, all co-founders of iSTEM had a strong belief that we don't want to be solely dependent on sponsorships or donations. But what we really wanted to do, we really wanted to create a market out of people with disabilities. So just to share with you, people with disabilities and their allies, they comprise of more than 8 trillion market. And this market is mostly untapped. So what we want to do, we want to tap into this market and create another market which can create good solutions and make a good business out of it. So from our inception, we started thinking about, revenue streams for iSTEMs. Not that people with disabilities are not able to pay for our solution. They were able to pay a certain amount, but we realized that bulk of our revenue is not going to come from B2C. So we changed in our strategy, and we then started partnering with academic institutes and corporates and others who actually realized the need of investing in people with disabilities. So in India, there's a very known concept of treating people with disabilities as an object to charity. So the vision of iSTEM is to change this attitude from considering people with disabilities as an object to charity to considering them as a human beings where people want to invest in HR, in human resources. We are an impact company, so we really like to see when we see so many people are coming up and started investing into the resources of for the development of people with disabilities. So yes, even at the impact for the impact community, it's important for you to create that impact, but also you need to seriously think about your revenue streams and your sustainability. So the key for us here has been to understand the difference of our users and our customers. So our end users are people with disabilities, but our most customers are all these academic institutes who buy our solution for their students, the corporates who want to make their content or website accessible, and other organizations who are directly or indirectly impacting people with disabilities. So just to summarize, it is even at the impact company or organization, it is important for you to have your impact, but it would be really helpful for you if it is backed by proper revenue channels and sustainability.
Thanks. And Zainab, I'd again like to hear the perspective of a mobile operator. How you talked about these great initiatives to reach underserved. I mean, how do you measure commercial success? How do you ensure that it's sort of part of the business rather than a sort of side activity?
So capitalizing on the business value of reaching underserved groups is really a function of understanding the need, delivering value in a targeted manner, in a manner which is really perceived of value to the end user, but then also making sure that you help the end user realize the benefits of that product and service as well. So it's not just about the product and service, it's about helping them achieve that at the end as well, whether that's digital skills or anything else. I think sometimes you do need to have a critical mass of knowledge before you can actually get into that phase of commercialization. Sometimes you also need to help build trust with that product and allow the end user to communicate with the product or service in order to build trust and in order for them to see the value. But I think there are other ways of understanding the needs as well and integrating underserved groups. And one other way that we do that in Telenor is by integrating them in the workplace. And by integrating persons with disabilities or persons with migrant backgrounds, what we're actually trying to do is, of course, give them the opportunity, advance the inclusion aspect, but it allows us to understand the needs in a much better and in a much detailed fashion as well. For instance, Telenor Group has a program called Open Mind, which is essentially focused on persons with disabilities and provides on-the-job training for persons with disabilities in several markets, including Norway, including Pakistan. More than 500 participants have gone through that training process, found jobs in Telenor, outside of Telenor. And what that has allowed us to do is understand firsthand in all functional units of Telenor's workplace, how to interact with persons with disabilities, what could be their challenges. And I suppose that is also the reason for the collaboration between DevTalk and Telenor Pakistan, and the reason that the first TVC with sign language actually came a couple of months ago in Pakistan, because you know the how and the why because you're working with them, because it's not just an isolated group somewhere else. You're sort of integrating them within your own workplace. I think another example here is from our developed market, which is Finland. Our operation there, DNA, is partnering, and we've heard the word partnership so many times, so of course that's the key here. They're partnering with Plan International, and they are working towards integrating migrant populations within Finland. which basically they're young people, they're vibrant, but they don't have the cultural language or digital skills to really integrate within the society and thrive. And DNA wants to integrate them through job shadowing programs and also through digital skill building programs, not only to include them and not only to help them be a part of the society, but also to understand this segment's needs and what kind of products and services do they want in Finland.
We've run out of time, but I wouldn't mind having, if each of you just took 10 seconds and just said, what is the one recommendation for this audience if you were to try to reach the underserved? If you could just maybe say one sentence. Shakul, I'll start with you. One quick sentence on what would you recommend for people trying to do this?
So for us, I just want to recommend with what I started with is to, several times you may think that you know your users, but most likely you will not be correct. So just don't make assumptions. Go validate your assumptions. Go to your community, your users, try your product out with them, validate it, and try to develop user persona to create good products.
And Abdul?
Yes, for us is to, we are very open for building partnership with all the organization to make their content accessible for the deaf. And my last word are, will you help us to bridge the gap for the deaf community?
All right, thanks. And
Quite
Azana?
obvious, but never gets old. As what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So for us, the fact that we set our goal of having 50% of women entrepreneurs within our programs drives everything else in terms of the partnerships. I think maybe at the top is just set yourself a target and then make sure that you organize to get it done.
Yeah, thank you. I would say, break the pie, demystify the homogeneity that we have perceived, and then also partner with people who know the segment best. I think there's immense value in synergizing that knowledge base and then building on top of it.
Great, thank you so much. We're out of time, but it's been fascinating. Some of the key takeaways I've taken is that really it's so important to understand the segment of who you're working with and try and meet their needs. Partnership kept coming up. And also addressing things around awareness, skills, and affordability, and some of the key barriers are also critically important. So I would just like to thank this group of panelists for sharing your wisdom and your experience and your knowledge with us, and thank you so much. I hope everyone join me in a round of applause for thank you.